Previously on Fresh Meat 2, Wes's alliance held the majority, while Kenny's had the strength. And some competitors played both sides of the fence. In the Lost and Found Exile, the tightest Exile race so far, Jillian and Pete sent Danny and Sandy packing.
Very close race, you guys, but Pete and Jillian once again successful.
And returned home victorious.
Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Challenge Recaps. This is episode 6 of the Challenge Fresh Meat from back in the day. And this episode starts with Wes talking to CJ and Sydney about the Exile because he's curious to know more about what actually happens in there. But if you remember, or watched the other video before this, CJ and Sydney never did the Exile because Brandon showed up drunk the morning of and wasn't allowed to even attempt it.
Caitlin and Brandon, we here at the Challenge will never let any competitor drink alcohol before an athletic activity.
But CJ came up with the idea to lie to everyone and say that they did do the Exile, thinking that if the other teams thought that they had already won an Exile, that it would make them look like they're one of the stronger teams in the house and maybe they wouldn't get voted in again. But it's completely backfired now because Wes is grilling him about what actually went down. And CJ just doesn't have the ability to lie, apparently.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. It looks a little shady. You guys could have told each other, you know, we still want to be on this alliance, but we'll keep what we know to ourselves. And then when your horrible poker face player girl just pulls a move like that, it doesn't help reassure me.
Then we jump over to Ryan and Jen, trying to figure out who they actually are going to end up siding with when it comes down to it. Wes or Kenny, and both of them are completely still up in the air about it.
I'm definitely still playing the middle at this point, but I know there's going to be a certain point in time where I'm going to have to either play with Team Wes or play with Team Kenny.
Then we quickly jump back to Wes and Evelyn, who are still caught up about CJ. So they interrogate him and get him to break, and finally he admits to Wes that yes, we lied to you and that they didn't even go into exile. So they have no idea what it could possibly be, and even though he didn't really do anything wrong, he definitely ruined his game by lying for no reason, because now nobody will trust him.
Okay guys, welcome to your next challenge here in beautiful British Columbia.
The next challenge is called Turnstile, and it's a tournament-style challenge.
You can see we have a turnstile with giant logs coming out of the center of it. Today, your goal is to push your log exactly 180 degrees from start to finish. Now, it's not going to be easy because another team is going to be trying to push their log in the opposite direction, trying to do the same exact thing. Today's challenge is going to be running a series of heats, tournament-style competition.
So, we got a physical challenge, which I feel like this challenge would be a great elimination round, and they should definitely bring it back for the newer seasons. But anyways, let's see how it goes. The first round is Landon and Carly, with Ryan and Teresa against Kenny and Laurel, with Pete and Jillian.
So the round starts, and immediately, Pete and I are losing so much ground. Are Ryan and Teresa really that much stronger than us?
Pushing as hard as I possibly can. Kenny is pushing as hard as he possibly can. Jillian and Pete have swung all the way back. We're fighting right now against Ryan and Teresa and Landon and Carly. We're not going anywhere.
Now, everybody here is giving it their absolute all, and Kenny and Laurel are pretty much holding back 4 people on their own, because Jillian and Pete, they kind of shit the bed on this one. But they do bring it back a little bit, at least. And they didn't get completely pushed back, so, there's that for them. Now, these 4 teams, they've been battling for over an hour. So TJ steps in and says each team has to eliminate 1 player. So the girls step off the log and let the guys finish it off. And even though Ryan is much smaller than the other guys, he still manages to hold on for quite some time. But in the end, So, Kenny and Laurel, they end up getting it done again, alongside Pete and Jillian, and now we get ready for round 2 with the other teams. But of course, Wes and Evelyn come up with a plan for Evelyn to throw the challenge, giving the easy win to Wes, so that their team is fresh to go up against Kenny and Pete in the final round.
I'm super pissed right now. You know, all Evelyn talks about is being an athlete, and here she is throwing a challenge.
Sneaky little bitch.
Bitch move, Evelyn. But, I mean, you can never say that she wasn't, completely loyal. But now, it should be an easy win for Wes and CJ against Pete and Kenny, because they're completely fresh and Kenny and Pete just got done an hour-plus long battle, where they killed themselves fighting. But, believe it or not, Kenny and Pete wiped the floor with these two soft-as-baby shit little bitches.
1, 2, 3 pushes aren't working anymore. And really what that means is that we're fighting a losing battle.
There's no way you two cupcakes are ever beating me and Pete.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. Both Kenny and Pete are physically shot, so they don't want to do another real final round between the two of them. But they know that whoever doesn't win is most likely getting voted into exile by the mob. And they both really don't want that because of how tired they are. And we've seen how, physically exhausting the exiles are. So they come up with a thought that Kenny will let Pete win, and that saves them, and hope that because the fear of going into exile against Kenny and Laurel is so high that nobody even votes them into exile anyways. So now Wes and Evelyn are going to really have to scramble and figure something out, because if not, one of them might end up in elimination.
So why not do Landon versus CJ? That's what we have to resort to.
Yeah.
It's going to be 2 members of my alliance going into exile. So if I'm in that situation, just being completely honest with you, I'm going to opt for CJ if I have to. And I would encourage you to do the same thing in that position.
Personally, I don't know if I can make CJ.
Landon, this isn't a sport. This is a weird, manipulative game, and it's also politics. It's how alliances work.
Wes actually is so scared of going into exile that he goes to Kenny, of all people, and says, let's make a temporary truce here. You, Kenny, tell Jill and Pete from your alliance to vote in Landon and Carly from my alliance. And then we as a house vote in CJ and Sydney, who are also in my alliance. Which is like, wow. Talk about a terrible leader, or I guess alliance master. Wes is completely willing to throw in 2 of his own teams just so that he can make sure he doesn't go into exile. And surprisingly, Kenny, even though he's wary, he actually agrees to this plan. And at deliberation, Jillian and Pete call Landon in, and the house votes in CJ and Sydney, and just like that, the exile is set. And Landon realizes that Wes, he was just playing him the whole time.
It was like a one thing where Wes was like, felt like he was going in and felt like he was going home. So he did whatever he could to save himself, and he did. So what the did he promise?
And now Kenny has to answer to his alliance, because they all thought that they had this vote locked in, and that Wes and Mandy were going to be one of the teams going into exile. But instead, Kenny cut that deal with him, and they're all like, what the fuck, bro?
You cut a deal with him. He swayed you.
It was, trust me, it was done. It was done. And then you guys outside Tuesday thing out there. Anyway, killed it.
I want to know what the hell Wes and Evelyn said to Kenny, because I think we all kind of agreed that we had this vote locked.
Him and Emily, listen, him and Emily just showing their true colors.
Kenny, though, manages to get his alliance members to see his point of view that by not voting in Wes and having Wes throw in 2 of his alliance members to save himself, that will make any remaining players still aligned with Wes see that he'd throw anybody under the bus to save his own ass, and hopefully that gets them to switch sides. I don't see how anybody ever trusted Kenny or Wes. These two were the snakiest motherfuckers back in the day. Moving on to the Exile, this one wasn't close at all, because CJ and Sydney spent an hour and a half on the first puzzle. I mean, that's gotta be embarrassing. 2 grown adults, and you can't gather up enough brain power to finish a simple pentagram.
You don't call retarded people retards.
Word up. If you go by the first puzzle, apparently CJ and I are not good at puzzles. God.
So yeah, they are headed home now, while I'm pretty sure Landon and Carly are already back at the house chilling. And that pretty much wraps up another episode here. Thank you guys very much for watching. Hopefully it was entertaining for you. And have a good one.